Freight train flat out towards the wall. We're about to slam into it. We're already in a crisis. The crisis is
We're in a
about to get a lot
circus,
worse.
that's where we are.
And we've got a new LNP government up here. What have we seen the LNP government change so far about this? They were elected on a mandate of change and to roll back some of the Labor government's, the entrenched Labor government bureaucracy. Have we seen anything improve in the building industry?
No. Huh? No.
Shallow Chal here, and I have just finished recording an interview with Helen from House of Stars. Now, Helen is a thermal energy reporting expert who has been in the building industry for many, many years and understands how the 7-star energy ratings work with the National Construction Code, and how the building industry in Australia is going through some ridiculously momentous changes, not for the good, and will only exacerbate the housing crisis and the current affordability crisis we have when it comes to getting into homes in Australia. This is a really interesting interview with an expert. I hope you watch it. I hope you enjoy it, and leave your feedback in the comments, because I got a heck of a lot out of it. In fact, I've still got questions spinning through my head that I'm going to have to get Helen back to answer for me. So get into this one. This is going to really blow your mind, and you won't believe what's happened, where we're heading, and how we already had an historical precedence for how bad this was going to be. But like most things, politicians fucking ignored it. How did you get into where you are now, doing thermal energies and assessment stuff for buildings?
Well, to cut a long story short, I worked for G. James Glass and Aluminium for about 2 years, and for me, I was just going to, if I stayed there, I was just going to be a number. So I got offered a window film installation job from Martin's Energy Products. They were a company that supplied window film to G. James. So I worked for them installing window film, and one thing led to another. I knew I couldn't grow there, and I went to another company, and long story short, I worked for a company called QIS SolarWise.
Yep.
Manufacturers of...
I know them, they're still around.
Yeah. Well, they're the pioneers of energy efficiency.
Yep.
So I was working for them, selling rolls of sarking out the boot of my car to builders. And that's basically how I got my clientele.
Yep.
Yeah, so I worked for them for 10 years before becoming a mum. And then all of a sudden my relationship broke down, and my little fella was 1.5, and I thought, what am I going to do? And I spoke to the director of QIS, and I said, I'm not coming back working for you 70 hours a week. I'm going to start my own business, House of Stars. Will you help me? Will it be okay if I approach all the builders and architects and building designers that I've worked with for the last 10 years? And he said, yes, we'll support you. So...
And was that for mostly renovation work or new homes?
No, it was all new homes. So energy compliance came in 2003.
Yep.
So it's not new.
Yep.
We still get phone calls today, Scotty, from builders going, when did this shit come in?
Yeah.
Right? 2003.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so back then we would get a report done for like a minor extension on a home. If we were doing a habitable dwelling extension, for example, we would get you guys to do, or a company like yourself, to do an energy report for that extension. And we never really had too many problems. My building company, we would use a lot of insulated panel. There'd still be a lot of glass in these rooms. And we would rarely ever get anyone coming back telling us that we had to change anything in the design or anything like that. We were really just providing a certificate to say the assessment had been done. Is that still how you remember it to be?
Oh, absolutely. Well, we always just needed the insulation under the roof or on the ceiling, butts to the external walls, and typically standard clear glass would comply.
And that was it?
That was it, yeah.
Is that just for Queensland, or is that elsewhere in Australia?
Oh, it was all of Australia, yeah.
Yep. And so in Queensland here, we used to have our traditional Queensland sunrooms, we would call them, right?
Yes.
And so we used to do a heck of a lot of those, and we never had any dramas with the approvals for those type of things. Provided after '03, as you said, we provided that compliance certificate. and just those really basic checks that you guys were up to then.
So back in 2003, it was just really a deemed to satisfy, and the easiest way to explain that, it's a bit like a roadworthy for a car, a tick and flick.
Yep.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Yep.
Then as it progressed, if you want to call it progression,
Yeah.
we started star rating,
Yep.
doing the star rating method of assessment.
Yep.
And that's essentially like putting the house on a dyno. We have to build it in a software program, put the colours in, the insulation, fans, etc., and run it. Now, right up until 2007, that star rating program only rated a house from 1 to 5 stars.
Right.
So as the software program develops and evolves, they changed it to rate a house from 1 to 10 stars.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is that the software you currently use?
That's correct, yes.
And who owns that software?
So there's basically 4 different major software programs, and CSIRO has their finger in the pie in each of them. So when I do a star rating certificate for you, Scotty, it costs me $33.
Right.
Okay, that's just the certificate price. It costs me more than that.
Yeah, because your
in terms
time
of
to
administration, etc.
Yep.
But $33, and the CSIRO gets 50% of that.
Right. So they're making a half of the $33 on every single assessment being done on every single construction, home improvement, extension, new home project in
That
Australia.
is what I'm led to believe. So the push is clearly for software assessments to be conducted versus deemed to satisfy.
Yep.
Because with the deemed to satisfy,
They don't make any money out of it.
they don't make any money out of it.
Who do you pay the $33 to at the moment?
So, for example, I use BERS, the BERS software program.
Yep.
And Energy Inspection is the owner of that, so I pay Energy Inspection.
But he built that system on piggybacking off of CSIRO's guidelines.
So
and
the
assessment
way that the
criteria.
program works is the back end's called the Shaneath engine, right? CSIRO dictates
Right.
how everything works in that Shaneath engine.
Yep.
So as a result, 5 years ago, if we added ceiling fans throughout a house, it would typically increase the star rating of a house by 2, maybe 3 stars, right?
So if you're trying to get a house from 3 to 5, you could add
Bang,
fans, bang,
ceiling
problem
fans.
solved. Yep.
Exactly. But now, adding ceiling fans might only increase it by 1 star. So everything, all the Shaneath engine, everything's been moving.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when you say moving, what have you noticed the most in the last 5 years? Because like really now, personally for me in the building industry, there's a time pre-COVID and there's since COVID, right? Nothing in my mind has been the same. So they draw a line in the sand, and then obviously the NCC 2022 came out, and that kind of threw a whole new curveball into the rules of how everything gets done. What have you seen change the most in the last 5 years now?
Well, if you don't mind, we'll go back to
Yeah.
2009, 2010,
Great.
because it's a deja vu of where we're at now.
Yep.
So in 2009, we had the BCA, Building Code of Australia.
Yep.
We had either 5 stars or the BCA deemed to satisfy. They increased the stringency in 2010. Now, one of the main things that they did is they changed the glazing calculator in the deemed to satisfy 2010. Guess what, Scotty? It didn't work. It was broken. So, in 2009, standard clear glass would work, but the 2010 glazing calculator was glitched,
Right.
where we now needed double glazing to comply.
From 2010
From
onwards.
2009 to 2010, we're talking 12 months.
Yeah.
We fought. So I was at the table going, this glazing calculator is broken. ABCB, you need to fix it, right? Everyone fluffed around. They went, you know what, we're not going to fix it. But what we will do is we'll bring in the QDC. So in 2010,
What's the QDC for those watching
the
at home?
Queensland Development Code was
Yep.
introduced.
Yep.
The Queensland Development Code didn't exist prior to
Yep.
2010.
Yep.
And that's when, instead of fixing the glazing calculator, that's when they said, okay, we'll allow a 1-star credit for an outdoor living area with a ceiling fan, or a 1-star credit for a solar power system.
Yep.
And that was also because in 2009, 2010, we went from 5 stars to 6 stars, which increased the cost of housing by, look, 10 to 30 grand.
Back then.
Back then, 2009, 2010.
So we went up 1 star in that 12 months.
Yes.
The software calculations that were meant to be used at the time didn't work, and so they just came out with a blanket set of rules.
The deemed to satisfy.
Deemed to satisfy.
That's right.
They came out with a blanket rule under the QDC to help you guys reach your star ratings. Yep. And then suddenly the price of a house, a new build, jumped by $10,000 to $30,000.
So it took about 6 to 8 months of absolute destruction of us reporting to master builders and HIA,
Yep.
the increase in building costs.
Yep.
Now, we had already done those examples before the code come in.
Yep. So
To
you've already
say-
given them a heads up.
Yeah, to say, hey, this is what it's doing. This is in 2009.
Yep.
This is what it's going to do. Oh, no, we've had our independence check. It's not going to happen. But we were fortunate enough that after 6 months of builders just freaking out, consumers experiencing extra costs
And delays.
and delays, right, that they said, all right, okay, we'll introduce QDC credits. So if you have a solar power system or if you've got an outdoor living area, we'll let you stick with 2009 code.
Got it. Yep.
Instead of using the 2010
Yep.
with the broken calculator.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of just having to meet 6 stars in the software, so we're going from 5 stars 2009 to 6 stars 2010, we're going to give you credits. Okay, if you've got a solar power, we'll give you 1 star.
Yep.
So you really only have to get 5 stars plus the solar power, we've got 6. So what's happening now, Scotty, to me, is deja vu.
Yeah. You've
Okay.
seen this happen
Oh,
before.
yes, but now the scale is even greater and we didn't have a housing crisis.
Yeah, we didn't have a housing crisis, but in 2009 we were also just post GFC, so there were some pretty significant economic things happening. Do you remember? I mean, like New South Wales and Victoria, their real estate market got hammered down there, and the government went into panic mode trying to create stimulus for the country, and that's when all the insulation and the school halls and Rudd went, just on a spending spree, and we spent all of Australia's future fund, I think, at the time.
That's a whole nother story.
It
that
is a whole nother
insulation
story.
debacle.
Yeah, it is. That's right. But you were in the industry at the time when you saw those big changes happen, and here you are still, not that many years later, because you obviously haven't aged a day in the last 15 years.
Come on, Scotty.
But you're watching this thing play out again, except now it's bigger, badder, worse than ever, and we've got more people living under bridges.
Well, it's absolute stupidity. Absolute.
Is that the bottom line? It's absolute stupidity.
Absolute stupidity.
Yep.
How does it make sense, Scotty?
How does it make sense, Helen? That's what I'm trying to understand, and that's why we're talking to you.
Well, if you can find somebody that can help you understand, let them.
The only thing that I've managed to find in the last couple of years is glazed eyes of politicians who have no fucking idea what they're talking about.
There's a lot of greenwashing going around.
Yeah, that's one way to describe it.
And what my argument is I've spoken to builders and we're going to say that the average increase in building costs going from the code that we're at the day before the 1st of May 2024 to today's code is on average $20 to $60 extra $1,000 to the consumer.
For a basic home.
For a basic home, yeah. And for a complex custom home, we could be looking at between 40 to 150,000. And saying that, builders are actually, they're not making any extra profit. They're losing money.
Yep.
The building designers are losing money because they're having to redesign.
Yeah.
Right.
Who is making money? I mean, I always come back to that. Who
The
benefits?
banks.
The banks.
Yeah, the
because
banks.
you're now
And
having to borrow more money to get that loan.
Yeah, look, Google the home scorecard system. Have you Googled that, Scotty?
No, I'm surprised you haven't sent me that.
Well,
I mean, you might have. I probably
I
just
think
never had a
I
chance to
have.
read
You
it.
probably go, oh, this is Helen.
I never think that, Helen.
The home scorecard system will be introduced in Australia sometime in 2025. They haven't finished rounding up eligible energy assessors to do that yet. Now, essentially, what that's going to do is, Scotty, say you've got your house for sale. So that's $1 million.
Yep.
And the bank has given me pre-approval for $1 million. The home scorecard system will require an energy assessor to come out to your house and star rate it.
If I'm going to sell it.
If you're going to sell it.
And sorry, where is this happening now?
It's not happening now.
But it's about to happen.
It's in 2025.
This year?
Yeah, that's right. But no one said what day.
So this could roll out any day, and we've already passed legislation for this to happen?
Well, I imagine so. Scotty, I'm not that much into politics. But it just says that it will be launched in 2025. It's run by CoreLogic and also CSIRO.
I have zero confidence in both of those entities.
I didn't ask you that. And don't ask me either.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you.
Okay, so let's just focus on what that means, why I gave you the answer of banks.
Yep.
So, Scotty, I want to buy your house, but guess what? It's only 4 stars.
Well, actually, I own a house that was built in 1953, and it's weatherboard workers' cottage off the ground, so it's probably not even 3, mate. I'd say it's probably a 2 or a 1.
If you've got, well, you know, it is a 0 is called a lemon, and you can actually have a house that's 0 in the star rating.
There's a pretty good chance that my non-insulated walls, my non-insulated roof, and my timber-clad workers' cottage is a
All right,
is a
so
lemon.
it's a lemon. Okay, so then what the bank's going to do is they're going to take Scotty's 4-star lemon paperwork. So we've got this paperwork. Scotty Challen's house is a lemon. Now,
But Scotty wants to buy his first home. Other Scotty wants to buy the house. Someone wants to buy the first home.
the bank's going to look at this lemon house and they're going to say, all right, so the requirement in Queensland is 7 stars. To bring that lemon, or let's say 1 or 2 star home, up to 7 stars is going to cost approximately $400,000. All of a sudden, I was going to buy your house for $1 million, but all of a sudden my borrowing capacity now has to be 1.4.
Yeah.
And that's, the banks are saying that they need to be responsible to consider greenhouse gas emissions and global warming.
So does that mean the house isn't worth $1 million anymore? The house is probably worth nothing. Because it has no, I mean, the $400,000 to upgrade that home, you could build a new house for that price.
So it's not worth it to me.
No.
But an investor that's got plenty of money.
Like you're talking about, like big hedge funds, possibly superannuation, people that can afford to ride that cost.
Exactly.
And carry the long-term liability.
So basically what it's going to do is the home scorecard system will wipe out the eligibility for any house that is not 7-star rated. That's the way that I interpret it, and many of the people in the industry have said the same.
Just to outline this, we've got the current National Construction Code with its 7-star energy rating requirement for brand new home builds. And then we've got the scorecard system the home scorecard system that you've just mentioned then for existing housing stock to be rented or sold. Is that just sale or for rent as well?
For sale.
For sale.
But the worst thing is that the problem is any time we increase the cost of a house, so whether it be new construction or whether it's an existing dwelling, that extra cost is going to be passed on to the tenant anyway. Right? So the home scorecard system is just a revamp of the sustainability declaration that was brought out, again, deja vu, in 2011, which failed.
And so I saw the CEO of Suncorp in an interview last month talking about the I didn't realise that it was being rolled out this year. But Suncorp's commitment to the increase of energy efficiency of new home stock through mortgage lending, and he referenced that, but I hadn't made that connection in my own mind until you referenced the scorecard system.
So some banks...
He said that was aligned with Australian Banking Association policy across all banks in Australia.
I don't know much about banking really, but
it's quite possible that that's how they're all going to end up on the same page.
Exactly. Well, there's a select few banks that are already offering discounted home loan rates, perhaps half a percent or 1% over the life of a loan if your house is 7-star
Which
rated.
could be another $200,000 in repayments or $300,000.
Well, yeah, I worked it out, but that's really just a smoke and mirrors to justify why they've increased the cost of housing between 20 to 60,000.
Yeah,
and so how many people are going to live in their house for 30 years anyway, Scotty?
No, well, I mean that's the other question, because I saw the CEO of BlackRock the other day reference that in America the majority of people take out a 30-year home on a fixed interest rate, but in Australia we play the variable game because we like to gamble.
Yes.
Right? So there's a big difference in how we do mortgages versus America. Plus the US is really comfortable if they're going to do a new build with a cost plus contract. In Australia, like most consumers will not work with a cost plus contract. Plus most banks won't lend on a cost plus contract anyway.
Well, so let me tell you, if I had a husband or a boyfriend, which I do not...
Just letting everyone know there, Helen's eligible and single, and if you just want to leave it in the comments.
Cost plus contracts. If I had a husband or a boyfriend, which I don't, there is absolutely no way in the world I would allow him to do a fixed price contract, Scotty.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely not.
If you were building a new home?
No. If I was married to a man that was a builder or a contractor.
Oh, sorry, that's what you meant. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so from my perspective as a building company owner, I won't do projects over a certain size and a certain scope because I just don't want to carry those kind of liabilities. I know where my lane is and I stay in my lane and we do our lane very, very well. And I'm comfortable to do a fixed price contract because it doesn't exceed a certain amount.
Right.
But if I was a new home builder, I just couldn't think of anything worse. There's no way I would do it. There's not a chance.
Not a chance.
No,
not
because
a chance.
the margins are way too skinny now to be able to carry the liability. Like any one of my suppliers could walk in here tomorrow, and I expect this at any moment, and tell me they're putting prices up 6%.
So Oceana Glass, one of the biggest glazing architects,
just went under.
Just went under. So what do you think is going to happen to the price of glazing?
Well, first of all, it might get cheaper because initially the Chinese will dump it here.
Okay.
Right, to make it look like, oh yeah, we can fill your supply chains. But incrementally, without our own supply chain internally in Australia, we're going to become reliant on them, right? Now, we're prone to their hissy fits. You know, you say the wrong thing and China will decide to, let's just dial down the glass supply, or let's put a tariff on imports. Like, anything can happen with that trade relationship. I've never been a big fan of outsourcing. There are things that we need to build homes in Australia. Oceana Glass was the last architectural glass manufacturer in the country, and they're gone now because they couldn't afford the energy costs here. So our supply chain is going to be China. It has to be China.
Oh, I think that the way that perhaps the construction code has been written is so that we're forced to get everything offshore,
from overseas,
which makes us look better in terms of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, but as you know, look, we're not going to go around this. We could go round and round on this one. All we're doing is exporting the emission to another country.
Well, but then it doesn't go on our tally, right?
Yeah, I know, it's a fucking joke.
So that's what my argument is if we're talking about increasing the thermal efficiency of houses to reduce energy bills.
Yep. By how much?
Right. $20,000 to $60,000.
Yep.
And it says that we'll save $185 a year on
So hang on, we're putting the price to build a home up by $20,000 to $60,000, which could be 10%. Like, let's say it's a $400,000 build or a $500,000 build. We've just put 10% on the price, right? We're going to save how much a year?
Well, the statistic says $185 a year, but if I want to base it at, say, $300 a year savings, that's a 77 year. If it's 20 grand, 77 years to pay that back.
Just on 20 grand?
On 20 grand. On 60 grand, it's 257 years to pay that back.
See, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
It doesn't make any sense.
But the only way it would make sense is if that 270, or sorry, the 185 a year that you're going to save is exponentially grown as well. So if they're expecting your power bill to go from, say, $4,000 a year or $1,000 a quarter to $30,000 or $40,000 a year, then that may be where the saving is. Do you think that that's what they're thinking?
Oh, it goes without saying that the energy costs are just going to skyrocket.
Yeah,
right?
I just got my latest fucking power bill for home, and it was like, we worked it out. I'm paying 90% more per kilowatt than I was 12 months ago.
Are you happy to be funding the wind farms?
Fuck no.
Huh?
Fuck no.
Well, that's
I just
what
want to
you
build
do.
homes for people and make people live in great places. That's
Yeah.
all I want to do,
I
right?
know.
But you know, we live in one of the largest countries on the planet with the least amount of people per square metre. Our carbon emissions per square kilometre would be the lowest on the planet. But for some reason, we're going to flagellate ourselves on the altar of greenwashing because of our international commitments to do what? To let more people be homeless.
It would be fantastic to have a government that's got the balls to pull us out of the Paris Agreement.
Yeah.
And then we can start moving forward.
Do you think that'll happen? I mean, without getting too political.
Not a chance.
We're locked in?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You deal with bureaucracies here constantly. How much of that have you seen change in the last 10, 15 years?
Oh, it's gotten worse. I remember, so I've been in the industry now for 32 years, and I remember my builder friends, it would take them perhaps 3 months to build a low-set house.
Yep.
That exact same low-set house now is what, 9 months, 10
Yep.
months?
Yep.
So I have, you would have thought that over 32 years I would have experienced progression.
Yep.
Or that we would have experienced progression, particularly with technology. But all this red tape, we've simply gone backwards.
Sorry, you were going to make a point?
And it's by design, Scotty, right?
You're being pretty conspiratorial there, Helen.
This does not, well, look, the legislation has actually made it that way, has it not?
It has.
So how come it's not happened by accident? So if it's not happened by accident, it's happened by design. It's really quite simple.
Yep. And so layering of bureaucracy. Now, the other day I was fortunate enough, because you're a good friend of mine, you send me all this stuff constantly that I should read and keep abreast of. Thank God.
Because I'm not brave enough.
No. Well, it's also because I mean, you're actually. I'm so bloody busy trying to keep shit moving that I often miss things. And the Productivity Commission report, 104 pages on the state of the Australian building industry. That I was gobsmacked when I read it, but not surprised. I knew that we were an inefficient and going backwards rapidly industry. What in that stood out to you?
Well, in the YouTube video talking about the Productivity Commission, the biggest thing that stood out to me was that the NCC has never been, what was the word they used? Did you?
Never been reviewed.
Never been reviewed.
Yeah.
Full stop.
For productivity.
Well, and then it was comma for productivity. So it's never been reviewed is one, and then for productivity two.
Actually, that comma makes a really big difference, doesn't it?
Well, I just took a breath while I was reading. It was quite easy. So for productivity and for what was it?
Yeah.
I've lost.
And so the NCC didn't take, when it was introduced, when they developed it and they rolled, this is National Construction Code 2022 with the 7-star energy rating requirements. And there are exemptions. People often make this point in the content that I make that, you know, certain small lots in New South Wales don't have to comply with the disability access. There are exemptions around some of the...
That didn't happen straight away, though.
No, but it happened because enough people pushed back and went, we can't build fucking houses.
So the issue with the Productivity Commission is who are they getting their information from, right?
Yeah.
Builders, so I represented about 300 hours of software results and estimated build costs 12 months before the new code came in. 12 months.
Yeah.
Provided them to the associations, went and
Which
saw...
association?
Master Builders and HIA.
You provided it to the two peak bodies in the country.
That's correct. And I also went and saw Peter Dutton with another builder of mine well before the code came in.
And this is when the Morrison government was in power?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were well aware of the impacts of costs. Now, what's the Productivity Commission going to do? It's nearly been 12 months since the NCC 2022 come in. You haven't seen great deal of screaming, because guess what? A lot of those projects, even though that code's been in for 12 months, they're only just coming into the new code now.
Yep.
Because we have the Section 37 transitional arrangements. Do you know what that is, Scotty?
No, please explain.
So if a builder or client can provide substantial evidence that the building design was well underway prior to the 1st of May 2024, the building certifier is within their jurisdiction to apply the previous building provisions.
Right.
So what that means is, Scotty, you come to me today, you give me a set of plans, I look at the plans and I go, hey, Scotty, wow, I can see that these plans were dated before the 1st of May 2024. Have you spoken to your building certifier about Section 37? What is Section 37? Well, it gives you, the client, the option whether they want to comply with the old code or pay an extra 60 or 80 grand in build costs and comply with the new code.
Yeah.
One of the biggest issues that we've seen in the industry is building designers and architects typically just plot one date on the plan files. Mm-hmm. So you might have engaged the building designer 2 years ago.
Yep.
He's finished the plans today, and the
that's
dates today.
But there might have been 7 revisions to that design.
Oh, exactly. But they're not always
Listed.
typically listed.
Yep.
So I always ask the question, and that question is, I call it the $60,000 question.
Which it is pretty much now.
Yeah. And the other thing as well is that some building certifiers won't apply it. They'll just go, well, I'm not applying the transitional arrangements.
Yep.
So the cost of building your dwelling is ultimately up to the building certifier and how they interpret the legislation.
One thing I've always known about the building industry since I started my own company in 2009 is that a building certifier will make or break your company's profitability. It's that simple.
I had one come through yesterday, Scotty. The house was originally, it's a renovation, right? So typically, just so that everybody knows, renovations can be assessed under Section 61 and 81 of the Building Act. Now, majority of building certifiers across the board will allow the previous building provisions on all alterations and additions. It makes sense, right?
Well,
because your lemon, your house that's a lemon, why would you have to meet the new code if you're putting 2 bedrooms on,
the
right?
side, yeah, that's right.
But even under the new code, there's limitations. So if we've got to meet that new code, you need double glazing. Depending on the code, I might have to increase your wall frames.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
330 mils to accommodate the insulation. Who writes? You can't make this stuff up, right?
No, but someone did make this stuff up.
Right. Who writes this? Who writes this
No,
shit?
but I'll go back a step there. You submitted to Master Builders HIA, Peter Dutton. You went in there with authority, where you went in there with facts, figures, information, calculations. You laid it all out for everyone before it rolled out, and it rolled out anyway. It didn't make any difference whatsoever.
That's correct.
Yep. And you used to be a member of the Master Builders?
I was a member of Master Builders and HIA. Scotty, I've been a judge for both of them for over 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you've been heavily involved in dispute resolution and understanding the intricacies of the building relationships.
Well, I was on a committee with Master Builders, the Institute of Building Consultants, which is typically made up of dispute resolution and building certifiers, but I've not been on that committee for 5 or 6 years.
Too much politics?
Well, moving right along, it just wasn't progressive enough for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That was still stuck in the past.
Well, no, not necessarily. I just want action and I want movement.
Sorry, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking that we should just stop walking on eggshells and go in there and just go,
tell it like it is.
We are not doing it.
Yep.
Our members are not doing it. We're not doing it.
You made a point to me the other week when we were talking about how large volume builders will get around or work with these new rules, and it will and their ability to reduce the impact. Like, let's say, how will Metricon deal with this? Right.
Well, it's pretty easy when you've just got a project. We call them cookie cutters. Excuse the French, but
Yep.
when you just got a cookie cutter and all you're doing is, let's call it the brownie, and every time you turn the brownie or flip the brownie, it's quite easy to put inclusions in that dwelling that will work in every single climate zone, flip, mirror and rotated. Yep. Having said that, they don't go out to regional areas, so yep. Every single climate zone except for regional areas,
yeah.
Right, it's quite easy to make something like that comply, but
yep.
when you've got a custom built dwelling, yep. Totally different
yep.
story.
So when we say custom built, we live in southeast Queensland here. It's pretty hilly around here. We have houses that are raised off the ground, and that's not an uncommon thing for us to do, to have to work on some difficult sites, and especially as the urban sprawl pushes out further into hinterlands and regions that aren't as simple and flat to build on. How will that play out?
Well, unfortunately, in the midst of a housing crisis, the builders that were most affected are the builders that are building modular, suspended dwellings, Scotty.
That's the craziest part of this.
Right? So I've got stacks of builders that do modular buildings, and their prediction would be between 30 to 60 grand extra just on a 1 or 2 bedroom.
So an $120,000 modular 2-bedroom potential drop-in box unit, plug and play.
Yep.
They're talking about 60 grand extra, 50% extra in the increase in the costs.
Just for energy efficiency. That doesn't even include accessibility.
Yep. Yep. But the question then is, I've had people say to me, well, under certain circumstances, you can apply for exemptions.
That is only being developed, Scotty.
Yep.
Okay, and this is the problem. We get these blanket legislations
yep.
that aren't practical.
Yep.
They're not best fit for all.
Yep.
And that's the same as the energy efficiency as well.
Yep.
That are just thrown out. And we've got a bunch of certifiers, everybody going, oh my God, how do we make this work? It doesn't work. How are we going to work around that? And then we've got to send it off to the ABCB and say, are we allowed to do this? And it's these exemptions were not in place initially. It was only after people started collapsing.
Okay, so does that mean now that we're hopefully seeing some progress being made here in trying to get back to a normal state of play? Or do you think that that's happening too slowly at this stage?
Oh, way too slowly. So they should have listened to us and the associations right at the beginning and said, do we think it's appropriate in the middle of a housing crisis, a rental crisis, to increase the cost of construction so that people save $185 a year on their electricity bill? Do we think that that's appropriate to do that now?
We were talking about this in the industry pre-2022 because we could see what was rolling out during COVID, but we all seemed pretty distracted. We were in the midst of a boom of some description, as you remember, from 20 to about 22, 23, until the interest rates started going up again. So a lot of this stuff kind of went over the industry's head. People who kind of knew, were in the know, like yourself, were talking about it and you were aware of it.
Well,
most of us were just battling to survive, really. You know?
When we met with Peter Dutton, right, which was well and truly before the code was implemented.
This is before 22.
He said that before any changes can be made, people have to hurt. So what you're talking about, Helen, this increase of 20 to 6, it's not happening, right?
It's going to happen.
But at that time, he said, it's not happening. It's not happening.
He didn't think it was going to happen.
No. It wasn't happening.
Oh, it wasn't happening.
People weren't hurting.
They weren't hurting.
They weren't hurting.
Yeah.
Before we can make any changes, people have to hurt. People have to hurt, right? And
but when we say people hurt, that's fucking kids living in tents under bridges, mate.
We have to wait until Labor proves that they've made the wrong decision, that they've brought it in. But here we are 12 months later, and the energy efficiency. Do you hear of any politician saying, you know what, it's just a tick of a pen. We can change it right now, Scotty. If you and me were in charge, We change it right now and we go opt in, opt out.
Yeah, but that'd take kahoonies that I don't reckon any of this leadership class.
Well,
have
that's
got, mate.
why we've got the productivity committee, right? Or commission,
and their
whatever you want
12-month
to call them.
report that probably
Right.
cost $100 million to
Yeah,
create.
but who are they going to be talking to?
Yeah, who are they
going to be talking to the builders?
No,
So
they're not talking to us. They're not talking to you.
what I would love is to come up with some sort of system or portal where all the builders can come in and say, not doing,
This doesn't work.
this doesn't work.
This isn't the practical application.
Yes, those estimations were correct. Mine's 80 grand, this product's 120 grand, and just blow it out of the water and make people aware of what this legislation has done.
Well, this is what we're doing by having this conversation. Right? We're trying to make more people aware, and I talk about it in my content, you talk about it in your content, you're sending me stuff all the time. I think that people are becoming more aware.
So in that YouTube video that I sent to you for the
Productivity Commission one, the 4 minutes of...
Yeah, so I looked on there and I thought, I want to write a comment. The comments are blocked. You can't make any
No, they
comments.
turned the comments off. It's like the ABC. It's like everything, it's filtered. You can only vote, and it only had 12 thumbs up.
That is just insane.
It's fucking ridiculous, right? Because in that's a government paid for product that we have no input into, even in the comments on a YouTube video.
And they say, we've done public comment. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
But that's like, look, I'm going to segue here, but they passed through an under 16 social media ban with 24 hours of public consultation, where we had 24 hours to be able to submit to it.
So don't you think, Scotty, we had a referendum for the voice, right?
We did.
Don't you think that given that the price of housing was going to go up between 20 to 60 grand, even for a 2-bedroom granny flat, don't you think something like that should have gone to referendum?
I believe there's a lot of things that should go to referendum, Helen, because I honestly believe that the power we've given this centralised point in the country here, and look, it started way back. You can go way back in time, but when the Fed started collecting GST and took tax collection off the states, you empowered an overbearing body basically, and then stopped the states from being able to compete with each other.
Yeah.
Because once upon a time, we would have had states that would have said, "I'm not adopting that. I'm going to have an industry here where we can build houses for half the price that you can in Victoria. And then we'll see who wants to come and live in fucking Queensland."
Yeah.
But that's not what we have. We don't have any competition between the states.
Fortunately, in Queensland, we do have an alternative to the NCC, which is the Queensland
QDC.
Development Code.
Yep.
So, very, very grateful for that.
That's kind of like one layer of backup that we have here. That
Yeah,
we can fall back
absolutely. But what we need to do is to get that reviewed.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the current rate of change, Helen, and this will be the last question, but the current rate of change that we're at the moment, where do you see us in 2030 if things don't change?
Homelessness will just be off the charts, times it by 10. The rent prices will be easy an extra 20, 30, 40% than what we're already experiencing now.
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, I don't even think that'll be because the dollar's devalued or inflation. I just think that'll be because of demand.
Well, if you're increasing, say that the investors that have just paid an extra $60,000 to meet the 7 stars, at some stage, that's going to be passed on to the tenant, is it not?
Yep.
It has to be.
Yeah. So you see in 5 years' time a 10x increase in homelessness at the current rate of change.
Oh, 10x,
You see
way more than
30
that.
to 40, 50% increase in rents.
Way more than that.
The cost to build a home.
Oh my God. Well, so since 2001, we've already experienced, 65% increase?
I'd say that would be even conservative. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're asking me what it's going to look like in another 5 years?
Yeah.
Probably another 150%.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a big jump, isn't it? So we're heading freight train flat out towards the wall. We're about to slam into it. We're already in a crisis. The crisis is about to get a lot worse.
We're in a circus. That's where we are.
And I follow the housing minister in most states. I'm a Queenslander, obviously, as you are, and we've got a new LNP government up here. What have we seen the LNP government change so far about this? They were elected on a mandate of change and to roll back some of the Labor governments, the entrenched Labor government bureaucracy? Have we seen anything improve in the building industry?
No, no, no. And the longer it's neglected, we see more insolvency. More insolvency. Sorry. Yeah. So no.
You must have seen a lot of builders that you know go under in the last couple of years.
Not, fortunately, none of mine.
Good. None of yours.
Yeah. But plenty of builders.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like a nightmare.
But we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg of that, Scotty.
You think it's about to get worse?
Oh, of course it's going to get worse. Building materials are only going up. Bureaucracy is not coming back, right? It's taking longer to build a house. Absolutely. I would say that, sorry for repeating myself, just go back. Scotty, we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg yet.
Yep. And look, I know I said final question, but this seriously will be. What would you suggest that, and you said before, with a stroke of a pen, we could remedy things quite quickly here if someone had the balls to do it. Sam O'Connor's the housing minister in Queensland here. Young 33-year-old, looks like he's about to become a career politician.
Okay.
Moved his way up through the young LNP and played the party game to get to where he is with zero experience in housing or construction. In fact, nice fella that he is, doesn't even look like he's picked up a shovel in his life. What would you suggest to Sam that he could do right now that would make a difference?
Right now, just pull back the NCC, go straight back to the code that was in place prior to the 1st of May 2024, which is the Queensland Development Code 4.1 version 1.14. We just need to go back, okay, so that we can actually start building houses, not barriers.
No worries. Well done, Helen. Thanks for talking to us today.
You're welcome.
Let's do this again soon, eh?
Yeah,
and see how we're rolling. Good on you, mate.
Hopefully I'll be a bit smoother. Thank you.
No, you did a great job. Good on you, mate. Great talking.